Hello, everyone. Welcome to my first season and first episode for my new YouTube channel, Chord Connect. In this episode, I want to focus on why consultancies fail even before they begin. You might be wondering, why do these things happen? Now, for many new consultants and many thriving professionals, you have a desire to become a consultant, and oftentimes there are pitfalls that can be avoided had you known some things. So, why some consultancies fail even before the contract is signed? One, not because the consultant lack expertise, not because the firm lacks funding, but because scope, timeline, and expectations are not aligned. Welcome to Consultancy Unlocked. I am Cordia Chambers Johnson, and today we are unpacking why consultancies quietly collapse before they begin and how to prevent it. Now, there are three areas I'd want to focus on today. They are scope gap. Number two is gold plating. And number three is unrealistic timelines. Now, when you think about scope gap, what comes to mind? A poorly designed scope of work creates risk. And guess what? That risk is usually absorbed by the consultant. Yes. So there are some common red flags that I want to bring to your attention that will help you to overcome all of these challenges that may cause a consultancy to fail. Number one, deliverables that are activity based and not outcome based. So they will tell you that in the terms of reference, under the scope of work, you will say, okay, meet with X amount of stakeholders, attend meetings, do some site visits. So those are activity based, they are not outcome based. Next red flag that you can identify is undefined success indicators. Yes. So the terms of reference does not refer to any type of success indicator. The next red flag that I want to bring to your attention is no stakeholder validation plan. Whenever you're doing a consultancy, irrespective of what it is, stakeholders must be involved. Either those stakeholders are internal or external stakeholders, and your deliverables ought to be approved by stakeholders. Those stakeholders would validate what you are working on. The next red flag I'd want to bring to your attention is vague phrases like provide technical support as needed. What does that mean? Ask yourself. And I'm sure this line is very common in many terms of reference under the description. And even if you're not a consultant, in your terms of reference, you will see this line popping up that you should provide additional support as needed. So I want you to ask yourself these questions. What does done look like? Who signs off on your deliverables? What does success measure? If the answers aren't clear, alignment is already broken. The next thing I'd want to focus on is gold plating. Gold plating is when consultants over engineer deliverables to impress. you ask yourself, why would I want to impress? Many consultants, they're just trying to be elaborate, extravagant, and want to create the impression and validate that they are experts in their particular field. However, if you want to look at some red flags as it relates to gold plating from the consultant's perspective, this is what it looks like. Large documents as deliverables. And when I say large documents, what am I talking about? You have a deliverable. The deliverable is maybe an inception report, or you're doing an evaluation or an assessment. You're looking at 150 pages, 247 pages, 310 pages. Come on now, let's be real. Who is going to sit and read all of that? And that is why you find that most donors, they will, and contracting firms, they will specify in the terms of reference that this deliverable or this report should be no more than 30 pages plus attachments. The next red flag I'd want to bring to your attention is adding frameworks that weren't requested. So sometimes as consultants, we do have knowledge of different types of frameworks and templates. Nonetheless, please don't add those in your deliverables if it was not requested. The next red flag I'd want to bring to your attention is designing tools beyond the institution's capacity. We see this more with working with NGOs and CSOs and smaller firms, small micro small enterprises. These are some of the challenges that we see that consultants just continue to try to impress. Well, I want to bring to your attention that complexity is not value. Contracting firms, they appreciate consultants that can bring or simplify the results or the deliverables. The best consultants calibrate, they design for usability, not ego. The third area that I'd want to highlight, and this is really one of my pet peeves, unrealistic timelines. Now, if you are a consultant, if you were a consultant, and if you're aspiring to be a consultant, I have news for you. It's not a matter of if, it's going to be a matter of when you will come across these unrealistic timelines. Now, the unrealistic timelines can present itself in things such as we want to contract a consultant to complete these terms of reference, 50 days over a 4-month period. 50 days over a 4-month period. And guess what? This 4 months does not include a lot of the baseline and groundwork as it relates to stakeholder engagement and stakeholder consultations. So in a way, you already can see that, this is unrealistic to achieve in 4 months. The next thing I'd want to bring to your attention is no stakeholder review window. So for example, in the terms of reference, what you will see is the schedule of work, and sometimes it's tied to the schedule of payment. Most times it's tied to the schedule of payment. So you will see inception report due 2 weeks after contract signing. Then number 2, you will see first deliverable due 4 to 6 weeks after contract signing. Then third deliverable is due 14 weeks after contract signing. And the reality is, this schedule does not take into consideration the review windows. And the review windows can become so complex. It becomes complex, especially when the project has various stakeholders who have to approve the deliverable. So, for example, you may have a contracting firm, but if it's a donor funded project, that deliverable has to go to the donor, or you may have a technical working group or technical advisory body or project steering committee that has to review and approve this deliverable. Additionally, if it's a program or project that's being implemented by multiple partners, then there are multiple layers of review and approval. So that alone throws the time out of whack. The next thing I'd want to say as a red flag is compressed donor cycles driving implementation speed. So, what does that mean? It sounds all fancy and everything, but what does it really mean? This means that one, a project is approved. Generally, projects are 5-year cycles. So, you have a 5-year project being approved by a donor. This donor gives the sign off and everything. Yes, the project can go ahead. Then the project has a lot of administrative things that needs to be done. So the implementation did not start until 8 months, 12 months, 14 months after that project is approved. No, that does not shift the timeline for the project. So guess what happened? The project is already delayed by a year, but the donors expect to meet that deadline of 5 years. What generally happens is that projects ask for an extension, in most cases, a no cost extension. So, this in and of itself presents unrealistic timelines. Here's the truth: compressed timelines produce compliance output, not transformative results. Consultants must assess whether scope divided by time is feasible. Again, scope divided by time equals feasible. If this is not feasible, guess what? You can renegotiate, speak to the contracting firm, and present your case as to why you believe that this consultancy is not realistic in the proposed time. If the contracting firm does not agree or isn't willing to renegotiate, and you are not comfortable with those terms and conditions, guess what you do? You hold your head high and you do the honorable thing and you walk away. Yes, you walk away. Now, great consulting isn't about brilliance, it is about alignment. You see, if there isn't alignment, oftentimes you are just going for a contract and then you find yourself in all of these challenges that you have to absorb as risk as the consultant. Now, I'd want to say to you that as we are closing out our first episode under Consultancy Unlocked, and this episode is titled Why Consultancies Fail Before They Begin, I want to remind you that there are 3 main areas that you can consider and look at the red flags, and these are the scope gap, gold plating, and unrealistic timelines. Again, thank you for tuning in, and As we go through the various seasons under this episode, I am sure it will sharpen what you are doing. In our next episode, we will break down how to read terms of references like an evaluation panel. What I'd want to encourage you to do right now is to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Thank you for tuning in to the first episode of Consultancy Unlocked with our title, Why Consultancies Fail Before They Begin.